My name is Dr. Walter Semke. I'm the president of Reincarnation Research. The pioneer in reincarnation research is Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia. For 40 years, he traveled around the world studying young children with spontaneous memories of past lives. From these cases, we can derive principles of reincarnation. One of the patterns is that people have the same personalities and talents and can look exactly like they did in their past incarnations. Barbara was born 9 years after Anne Frank died. When Barbara was a little child and said, "My name is Anna Frank," she had spontaneous memories of her past life as Anne Frank. At the time, her parents didn't even know who Anne Frank was because the diary of Anne Frank was not yet published, and they thought she was making this all up. What makes her case compelling is not that she has the same facial features as Anne Frank, but she had memories from childhood, and by the time she was 10, her parents took her to Amsterdam, and the father wanted to go see the Anne Frank Museum. Barbara said, "We don't need a cab, it's right near here." And they said, "How can you possibly know? You've never been here." Somehow Barbara went straight to the Anne Frank house, looked at a wall and said, "Mommy, look, the pictures, the movie stars are still on the wall." And her mother looked at the wall and said, "Barbara, there's nothing there." And the tour guide said, actually, the pictures that Anne Frank had clipped out of magazines of movie stars had been on that wall. That was the first time her parents realized her past life memories were real, or that her reported memories were not fantasies. And Barbara became a childhood writing prodigy, just like Anne Frank had her first book published at age 12.
The other kids, when they were younger, say, "I want to be a fireman, I want to be an astronaut," but I was always, "I want to be a fighter pilot."
From the age of 3, James's parents began to hear stories from their son that shocked them. That their son was recalling things that connected him to a Navy pilot who died in 1945. They were skeptical. As Christians, they never believed in reincarnation. But they began to piece together an amazing story. The first clue came from the terrifying, non-stop nightmares that James began having at the age of 2.
He was saying, "Airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out. Airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out." That's when I was like, oh my God, is that what he's been dreaming this entire time?
What he was saying wasn't registering as much on me as what he was doing. He was flailing around in bed.
Within a year, the visions that greeted James in his nightmares began taking shape when he was wide awake.
I was reading to James, and then he sat up and he goes, "Mama, the little man's going like this." And he laid down and he goes, and he did the same thing he did in his dream. He was kicking his feet up and he goes, "The little man's going like this. Ooh, 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 can't get out, can't get out." And I sat him back up and I said, "Who's the little man?" And he goes, "Me." It still makes my hair stand up. And Bruce said, "What happened to your plane?" And he said, "It crashed on fire." And he said, "Why did your airplane crash?" And he said, "It got shot."
James then gave his parents the next uncanny clue, one that was very specific, the name of a ship from which he says his aircraft took off.
So I said, "Well, did your boat have a name?" And he said, Natoma. And I'd never heard the word before. And I went down the hall and got onto the computer and Googled it. And down around hit 300, all there was this thing, Natoma Bay, CVE 62. Clicked on it, and up comes this history of a World War II aircraft carrier. I had no answers. How could he know this? How could he know a person? How could he know a ship?
Then James started drawing the same thing over and over, like a movie compressed all into one frame. An air battle. Flak. a plane on fire, and his signature, James 3.
So one day I was in the kitchen, I was washing dishes, James had breakfast, and he had an airplane, he was just flying around like this, and he goes, Mama, before I was born, I was a pilot, and my airplane got shot in the engine and crashed in the water, and that's how I died. And I was just froze.
The next breakthrough came when Bruce was invited to the Natoma Bay Veterans Reunion. He asked about the names of men killed in battle. And this led him to finally solving the mystery of James 3.
He called me on the phone and he said, you won't believe this, there's only one guy from Natoma Bay who was killed during the battle for Iwo Jima, and his name was James M. Houston Jr. And I said, wait, that would make our James 3. I was so excited. I'm like, that's him. It's James M. Houston. His name is James, it's the James 3.
James Houston Jr., World War II Navy pilot. At age 21, on March 3, 1945, his plane was shot down over Chichijima. Now, the skeptical parents were sitting on compelling proof that their little boy really was reincarnated.